I've got a few questions. If I just put them out there and you guys decide amongst yourselves who to answer, thank you. I just wanted to start off by saying, yeah, I really appreciate how you obviously care about kids, and what you said about kids who are unhappy and afraid about being bullied and how they can't learn, that's absolutely true. I just wanted to push back a little bit on the way that you framed the resistance to this curriculum. I'm one of the people and a teacher and a parent who has massive resistance to this program, and it's not because I disagree with the fundamentals of what you're saying. And I have, for years and years, been going around speaking to parents about this. They're not anti-trans, they're not anti-LGB. In fact, the LGB union is like a massive fan of mine because they agree with me. The fact is, from my perspective, personally, and from what I've heard, and I'd just like to hear your response back because I haven't had a chance to speak to someone like you about this, is that I have found that the resistance is based on the disparity between parental expectations about what's going to be taught at what age and how, and parental consent, parental involvement, that's a big one. Age appropriateness, I find that's really out of step with my expectations as a teacher and a parent. When I look at the curriculums down lower, I'm very shocked. There are certain things that I don't want to be normalised in terms of other adults speaking to my children about, just because I want them to know that that's a discussion for basically their parents and a doctor or something like that. It's just extraordinarily young, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people agree with me on that. I think what I wasn't expecting to see in the program was a lot of the erotic sexual content. I was not expecting to see that in all of the sex ed that I had done before. It wasn't so erotic. I didn't know why that was there. I thought it was inappropriate. I thought it was uncomfortable for my students in the classroom. Safeguarding policies, parents and teachers are worried about that for lesbians who feel that their sexuality is actually being erased by the idea of gender identity. And that's not based on hate, that's just how they feel. Girls, obviously, feeling like they don't have access to the privacy of a single-sex toilet or change room, or they're going to be put in a room. And they don't hate the trans kids, they don't. But they just have this obvious desire for sex-based privacy. The teaching methodologies was something that stood out to me in particular, which introduced role-playing. And role-playing things that I found very shocking, and then this new concept of having to debrief the students because they might be traumatised by it. I'll give you some examples from Respectful Relationships. You are a 16-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted by her boyfriend. You do not want to see your boyfriend, but he goes to the same school. You do not want to go to school, and your grades are really suffering. Like, it's an important topic, but I would not get kids to role-play that. As a kid who was in a classroom, as one of those people who had been assaulted, I would have found that extraordinarily traumatic. Here's another one. You are a 15-year-old boy who has been forced to give your uncle oral sex. You are so ashamed, but are scared that he will hurt you if you say something. I won't go on, but I find the role-playing aspect of that extraordinarily a massive and extraordinary change, and I worry about the kids for that. Also, even in the way that you guys were talking, I noticed that, you know, there's no framework for expressing concerns about these programs that aren't somehow anti-trans hate. And I think the students feel that as well, and the parents, and I think that's one of the key sources of resistance. Anyway, that's my point of view, and I just wanted to hear what you have to say about that. Give you a chance.
To you go?
Yeah, absolutely. Part 8 of our recommendations talks about improving facilities funding and infrastructure funding for primary and secondary schools to absolutely do that. Include single cubicle, gender neutral toilets for anyone in the school community, whether it's a visitor, a parent, a carer, a teacher, an education support class, an aide, and a student, to have access to a change room or a toilet or a bathroom that is gender neutral, so they can make a choice about where they would like to go. Absolutely. Change rooms are also incredibly important, so that everyone, and it also, I find in many schools I've worked in, it becomes the ad hoc thing, is the disability toilet.
Exactly.
And I don't approve of that, having a child who needs mobility aids to get around. They find that really difficult when they have to use the disability toilet, and it's not appropriate. I think if you looked at part 8, we talked about we needed all gender single cubicle toilets and change rooms available to everybody, including sensory wellbeing rooms and other places. So we're thinking about the whole school community requiring places in the school they can regulate, be safe, go to the loo, refresh, get back into class. In terms of things like some of the delivery, my experience of delivery, of having worked in a number of schools and also been looking at teacher training for about over the last 20 years, that's primarily what I have done, is that you always have a group agreement. You always have an agreement and a safety warning, and that is discussed very thoroughly in front of the Respect for Relationships curricula, where it talks about when you're sitting in a classroom of 16-year-olds, which would be Year 10 students, which is the last year you really do RRR, or Year 9 students who are 14 or 15, you have a group agreement. You say, what are the things that we're going to be aware of? We're going to be aware of not judging each other, keeping what's said in the room. Who do you talk to if you're upset by the content? What do you do when you want to leave the room because you are upset? How do you indicate to the teacher? Have you got a wellbeing person? We always had a wellbeing person attend or be available when these curriculums are being taught in Year 9 or 10 classes or other classes. So I think some of the safety concerns are dealt with because the teacher, this model allows it to be a teacher who has become potentially a trusted adult or a person that the child knows pretty well, who's seen around the school. They're teaching the curriculum. It's embedded within the school community. It's not an external provider coming in for a day, doing their thing and leaving. It's actually all about embedding that care and concern into the school, because we know when a child has a trusted adult, and child safety standards talk about this constantly, they say that if a child has a trusted adult they can talk to, they're more likely to disclose sexual assault or other issues, because it is someone maybe outside their family they have feel confident will support them. And that's what a teacher is showing when they set up a group agreement. They talk about the parameters in which discussions will happen, and they deliver this material with kindness and care. So I think that hopefully responds to some of the sort of day-to-day concerns I would see as a parent, but also as someone who's worked in this field previously. I think I just wanted to push back also a little bit about the LGB Alliance. Like they, I think who you were talking about, who you work with, Moira, or who you said were fans of yours, and they are an imported organisation that is in Australia now. LGB literally just means lesbian, gay, bisexual. They are anti-trans. If you look at their website and other materials, they are not supportive of gender-affirming care that saves the lives of our children and our older trans community. So it is just really important when we talk about the groups and the different groups, that we're very clear about the aims of these groups and how they're articulating their support or lack of support for certain social changes at the moment, and that would be the same with this curriculum. I think parental expectations are really important. I've sat on my primary school's education policy committee and student council. I think they're really important to get engaged in your kids' education, and I was the chair of the policy committee for 4 years. So I have a lot to do with the PAL, or the Policy Advisory Library, that all teachers and school staff could access, as well as families. And you can read there the expectations you would have on sexuality education, LGBTIQA+ support, complaints, which parents are welcome to do, and they've introduced in secondary school different levels of complaint systems post-COVID as well for parents and carers to make about the principal or about the school curriculum or anything like that. So there are already levers and opportunities for anyone with a complaint about a curriculum to put that in writing and have that addressed. And I think that's incredibly important to be able to do that. There's Parents Victoria, there's Parents Line, there's other support mechanisms parents and carers can use to ascertain what their rights and responsibilities are and what actions they can take. And I do think that parents have that right and responsibility, and I approve of that being the case. So I hope that just maybe reflects to the rest of the committee some of the concerns that Ms. Deeming was raising, and those would be my responses. I'm happy to give more responses in writing later.
Just one more thing, Tring, if you don't mind, just very quickly.
Did you?
Do you want to speak to? Absolutely. Absolutely.
We just really agree. I know Jen earlier was talking about a whole school approach, and that needs to include community and parent expectations and engagement. And when it's done well, and we've seen it done well in some Victorian schools through Respect for Relationships education program, there is an engagement, and it's a discourse in between the parents, the teachers, the children, and the broader community as well. So that's really, really important. Age appropriateness, I do think, is really important. My understanding of the current 4Rs is that it is best practice in age appropriateness. Those examples that you read out, I'm not familiar with them, and would be good to sort of hear where they're from.
Yep, they're from the actual curriculum.
Okay, we can have a look at that, yeah, because we do trust the teachers and the experts that have come up with this work to be looking at what's in the room, who's in the room, and how they can be supported. And I think that's why it's so critical that Respect for Relationships education is delivered as part of the education system. It's not some stranger coming in for an hour and talking about this. It's people that have that long-standing relationship with family and students, and I think that echoes what Chris was saying before as well.
Thanks, Kate. I know more question. I'm happy more you
It's a very
ask
quick one.
quick questions. We probably noticed, and I'm quite happy because a few other members want to ask questions
Okay.
time. And please do submit those answers. I'm
And
sure you've written those questions down. So
Yep.
more you just want to put
Yep,
that
and I'm happy
question.
to give you the page numbers of what I was
Yep.
reading out
Yeah,
there.
that'd be great.
I just want to push back again on the idea of being anti-trans for not supporting trans urban care for minors, especially in light of the CAS review that's just come out. We can all disagree about this, but the people who disagree about it do so out of care for children, just as much as you agree with it because you care for children. I think that's one of the very, very biggest problems in this whole sphere, is that everyone's demonising everybody else. But I can see you care for children. It's undeniable, but I do as well. I just genuinely, I disagree. That's all. It's not anti-trans. I'm open to persuasion. I can't see it. And I think that's one of the issues. But anyway, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you responding to my questions, actually responding to them and taking them seriously. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just with those questions, I know it's quite a few questions. Just please do submit those answers.
Thank you. We will.
And